Hi everyone and welcome to another card video. Today I'm doing a heat embossing background stamp technique for Create a Smile stamps. So I'm going to use stamps by Create a Smiles right through this card. And I'm starting off with the Stars and Scribbles stamp set. It is a rubber stamp set. I am using some Lawn Fawn deep sea ink. I'm gonna stamp this onto some cardstock, some Lawn Fawn Blue Jay cardstock. But you can use any kind of blue ink and any kind of blue cardstock. I just had this and I knew that the deep sea would work good with the Blue Jay cardstock. Also, I have a very new ink pad and it actually stays wet pretty long, so I am going to heat emboss directly on this. So I'm starting off by heat embossing on top of the Blue Jay ink. I'm using some clear embossing powder. This is the Ranger clear embossing powder, but most clear embossing powders are very similar, so you can use any kind. I just happen to have this and I've had it for a long time. Embossing powders are one of those supplies that you don't really need to replace because it doesn't get old. So I think I had this specific one almost since I started doing card making, so since 2009, so almost 10 years old, but they still do them. Then I'm heat setting it. This is one of my favorite parts when I do any kind of heat embossing, looking at the embossing powder melting. And you know that your embossing powder is kind of done when it's a little bit shiny. Then you have done it fully and you have melted it fully. I want to layer this stamp set on top of this background because I thought that would make a really cool effect. Basically, the whole card is going to be about this background. So I'm going over with some Versamark ink. This is a clear sticky ink. It's really good for heat embossing. I have turned the paper down 180 degrees so that I get a different placement of all the circles of the stamp, so I kind of get them overlaying in a nice way. And then I'm using some Nuvo Blue ODYSSEY embossing powder to emboss onto that card. Now I got a little bit of excess ink onto my stamp, so I have certain areas where the embossing powder kind of stuck even though I didn't want to. So I'm going over with just a cheap brush or a simple brush. I think that is actually a Ranger brush, and brush it away. It will not hurt the brush to brush those powders away. And then again I'm going in with my heat tool to heat emboss it. My own heat tool actually broke the other day. My kiddies had it into the floor like a week ago and I think something got loose in it. So yesterday it just started smelling and sounding very bad. So this is actually my sister's. She came to the rescue and said, hey, I have one, you can borrow it. And it's so much better than the one I had. So I'm going to look into, really look into when I'm getting a new embossing powder, embossing tool, because that was super good. For the last part of this technique, I'm using some stars from the Wood Candles and Glitter stamp set. To just add, I wanted more stars because this is going to end up being a Christmas card, and the whole technique is a pretty quick and easy technique, and I thought it was a good one to have a day before Christmas in case you want a quick and simple card to go with your gift. I thought this would be a perfect one. So I'm using two different sizes of the stars. I'm using the Versamark ink, and I'm gonna finish it off with some Nuvo Shimmering Pearl Glitter embossing powder. So all of these embossing powders kind of work together. None of them are brighter than the other one, so I kind of get this just very detailed sort of look. and it mixtures metallics, glitters, and just shine, which I really like because it gives me that big difference of textures onto that card. I went, just as I used embossing powder, I just went over with a dry cloth or dry paper and brushed the rest of the powder away, and you have the card. Then I cut it out with a rectangular die. However, this step, if you want this to be a quick card, you do this step after you stamp the sentiment. The ink will take some time to dry, and I ended up needing to leave it overnight. I was doing this card pretty late at night, so I just added the sentiment this morning. But it is a very good way to give a little bit more depth into a card. So all I'm doing is adding a little bit of that chipped sapphire at the edges to just give a little bit extra. And after letting it dry, I'm using the Christmas surprise stamp set. I actually went over and stamped it 3 times with Versamark. So just inked the stamp up, stamped it, inked it up again, stamped it again. And that is using a stamp positioner like the MISTI helps that a lot. And that also helped me getting a really good coverage of ink and a really good coverage of that white embossing powder, and that is the Hero Art Fine white embossing powder that I'm using. With the Christmas surprise stamp, you get a couple of small text, and Merry is one of them, so I'm adding that to finish off the card. The last piece of the card is using a little bit of foam tape on the back side to add on a white card base that I made before. I have a whole bunch of them to make my card making go a little bit quicker. And that actually finishes off the card today. I hope you liked it. If you do, please thumbs it up. If you have any questions, just comment down below. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button and share this with all your friends if you really liked it. I hope you did. But yeah, that was the card for today. Thank you for watching, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I will be back in a couple of days. Bye!